What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Sports Scoop. Today, we are doing another off-season video, kind of a new idea. We are doing something called Quarterback Roulette. And here's the show. So basically, we have 15 teams, all that potentially could have multiple quarterbacks. And each of us, we have two people, Kian and Dylan, are going to have 5 teams that we pick our quarterback for. But the catch is that if your quarterback gets taken by another player, then you have to decide to have a different quarterback. So it is kind of almost mock GM, kind of like it's all kind of who we think will be the quarterback, but then obviously having to adjust on the fly if someone else does take the guy that you want. So that's the premise for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let's get into it right now.
If that was a little bit confusing, not Surge's fault. We even are confusing ourselves. But like Surge said, we each have 5 teams. We each have 5 NFL teams, 15 in total. And we each, before we recorded, picked a quarterback we think will start week 1. But say I have the Lions and Dylan somehow picks Jared Goff before me. I'm not saying I have him. Then I have to, on the fly, come up with a new quarterback. It's kind of like a game show. This first was just like a regular analytical video where we just talk about it. But as always, we're going to be breaking down why we think it'll be that quarterback. So it'll still be a very informative video. But Surge, I feel bad for you. That was definitely hard to explain. But we'll get into it. Yeah, we'll get straight into it. Again, Kian McDermott, Surge Crowley, Dylan Shalom. Make sure you guys subscribe. And let's get into who we think will be the quarterbacks. All
right. So I'm starting off this game on a high, and I'm starting with the Green Bay Packers. So we've been seeing some potential trade rumors coming in about Aaron Rodgers being unrested in Green Bay, as we do every 2 seasons. Nothing's going to change. I still have him being the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. I hope none of you banked on him being open. It'd be incredibly foolish. Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers. Let's move on.
That's actually, I will give you this. That is actually I think that is one that is definitely a hot take. Again, we know this man is the most confusing human being on the planet. So maybe he retires. Like, we really don't know what happened. But I think, like we've said about cap space, I think, and again, he's signed, so it's not like he's a free agent, but I like Aaron Rodgers staying. I think it's more favorable than kind of the media has perceived it to be. I think it's probably more likely he does stay, but again, I have no idea.
Yeah, we've been seeing rumors saying Jordan Love is being shopped out. That they're
and I mean, that wouldn't be an awful idea, but it's definitely very, very confusing. All right, so Aaron Rodgers off the board. And now we'll go to me. So I have the Buccaneers. This is where Aaron Rodgers would have been very interesting. However, I do not have Aaron Rodgers. I think the starting quarterback week 1 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be Jimmy Garoppolo. I think they will go and trade for him.
Ooh.
I think he fits this system perfectly. I think it is an upgrade essentially from the 49ers. And I think if they want to kind of stay on the same track as they did with Brady, I think if they get Garoppolo, they're exactly where they still were with Brady. I think Garoppolo can, at this point, again, give or take a few situations. I think Garoppolo is a very aggressive quarterback. And I think he's definitely someone who will fit this Buccaneers system. Great defense and offense that is better, or when healthy, better. Obviously, they'll most likely lose Godwin and maybe Leonard Fournette. But I do think Jimmy Garoppolo fits. You guys know I'm very high on Jimmy Garoppolo. Based off this season, I think Jimmy Garoppolo was an elite quarterback. A lot of people disagreed with that, but I do think this guy still has years ahead of him. There are some rumors that he may stay in San Francisco. There's who knows? I doubt that happens, but I think for the Bucs, they have that space to maybe trade a pick and a decent starter with the depth they have on that roster. I think that's what the 49ers asking price will be. I think he fits, man. I really like Jimmy Garoppolo there. I've heard a lot of Jameis Winston, but I mean, we already saw him on the Buccaneers, so I don't see that. I think they'll go for something new. Jimmy Garoppolo, I think, can make them a contender. I think he will be, he's just as good of a quarterback. It's so hard to say just as good as Tom Brady because he's not, but I don't think they'll skip a beat if they go and get him.
I understand the premise, and I kind of agree with you that he makes them a continuous playoff team, but they're just losing so many pieces. It's almost at the point where they kind of need to rebuild because they're losing so many pieces. Their pieces are aging. Is it worth going one more run to the playoffs with this team, or do you need to start rebuilding? That's my only question. But Garoppolo makes sense.
Yeah, I think it kind of gives them a good 2-3 years of continuous. I mean, this team's not ready to rebuild. They have too much talent, even if they lose Godwin and Fournette. So
they're losing Jansen. They're losing JPP, probably Gronk.
Yeah,
I think,
but
JPP and Gronk might not be as big of losses considering the defense has relied less on them by each year passing. But I think, I agree with you though to a certain extent that obviously when you're losing probably Pro Bowl caliber receiver in Chris Godwin, Pro Bowl running back and Leonard Fournette, it obviously kind of severely handicaps your team. But I think still there is so much talent on that offense, especially on the offensive line, especially with you have Mike Evans and again, maybe Gronk, we don't know, but I still think this team is still pretty well set to win the particularly weak NFC South.
All right.
Now moving on to the next team. Should we go on?
Yeah.
Surge, you're up.
I'm up. Speaking of the 49ers, I have the 49ers right now, and I am going to go with Trey Lance as their quarterback starting week 1. And I know there has been a lot of noise about how maybe the Niners want to go for a veteran quarterback, a quarterback that's more experienced. I heard like some rumors about, obviously probably pretty unreliable, but I heard some rumors that they wanted Aaron Rodgers or they wanted kind of that guy.
I heard they wanted to take Brady out of retirement.
I know. I heard that too.
I've heard a ton of that.
That has been really interesting, but I think with the 49ers, I think this was their plan all along. They let Trey Lance sit behind Jimmy for a year and then let him take over year 2 where he can kind of shine and be hopefully everything that the Niners imagined him to be, a top 10, top 5 quarterback in this league. And I think if you saw how he played it his rookie year, obviously made a lot of rookie mistakes, but he kind of got in a groove as games went on, as the weeks went on. And kind of, again, he has so much talent that he's almost destined to succeed. And I think especially when you have a quarterback with that much arm talent and that much just ability on the ground as well, I think you've got to kind of at least test the waters and see how good will he be and kind of see if he can make them a legitimate contender in this NFC. And I think realistically, I know there are some decent options on the trade market or in free agency for quarterbacks. But with the Niners, I don't think they have a better realistic option than a Trey Lance.
I think their plan is giving this man the most possible snaps in OTAs preseason before the season starts.
100%.
I think that's their plan. I think Trey Lance will be fantastic. If he can be, and again, very good coach, good system around him. I think Trey Lance will be fantastic. I think it would be a waste if they didn't play him this year.
I don't think he needs to sit for 2 years.
Yeah,
all right, Dylan, you're up for. No one has stolen anybody's quarterback yet.
Moving in, and I don't imagine that changes right here. I have the New Orleans Saints, and they're, in my opinion, in the worst spot going into this offseason with millions and millions and millions of dollars over the cap limit. Pretty much every big name on their team is potentially going to be traded, going to be let go. And the one guy who has kind of pushed them into bankruptcy is going to be the guy that's leading them forward into this NFL season. And his name is Taysom Hill. And as much as I disagree with that, I don't think it's the right move. I don't think that they should do it. I'm not even I'm kind of convincing myself that they're going to. But just looking at all the outputs, I don't think they can afford to bring back Winston. There's too many holes on their defense to go for a quarterback right now, especially since they're going to be losing so many guys, potentially even Lattimore's out on his way out. And then there's so many holes on offense where they have to go ahead and they have to draft an offensive lineman if they're going to get rid of Armstead. They have to draft a receiver if Michael Thomas is gone. There's too many holes for them to draft someone. They don't have enough money to trade for a quarterback or sign a quarterback in free agency. Taysom Hill and Ian Book is kind of where they're left with, and Taysom Hill is going to be the one that's going to lead them to their terrible season this year.
I will say this. I think they would be very smart to draft Malik Willis.
That would be interesting.
I think that would be the smart move. And I cannot wrap my head around starting Taysom Hill. I just don't see him as a quarterback. But I'll say this. He's been able to somewhat play at a decent level. Again, we know Jameis. Who knows? Maybe they bring. I know they just saved money. I'm not sure how they did, but I know they restructured something. Again, the Saints will have money to sign someone. I think as much as the cap space seems
where most teams you could say, okay, they'll restructure this amount. The Saints cannot physically restructure anything at this point. They're pretty much done.
But I like it. I don't like it, but I do think, like, what are the chances they draft a quarterback is kind of where I'm at, and I don't know if they will.
I don't think they can.
Yeah,
I think there's going to be too many holes.
Yeah.
Dennis Allen's kind of been put into a pit for this season.
But let's move on where I am now up with the Washington Commanders. I'm going another interesting one. I think Kenny Pickett will be their starting quarterback next year out of Pitt. I really like Kenny Pickett for Pittsburgh. I'll be honest, for the Steelers. I do really like him, but I was very, very torn between Pickett and Matt Corral. But I kind of went for the more prototypical tall, decently accurate quarterback. I was going to say strong arm, but Pickett lacks that a little bit. I think Corral would be the choice with more upside. But for Terry McLaurin, I think he just deserves a quarterback who's prototypical, big, and can just get him the ball. I really like Heinicke. I'll give you that. I think if Heinicke was their starter next year, they wouldn't have the success. He's not a Super Bowl quarterback, but I think Heinicke is a decent quarterback. But I do think they'll go draft Kenny Pickett. I really like Kenny Pickett. I did a scouting report on him. I think, again, what he kind of lacks is that deep arm strength. But I'm a big fan of Kenny Pickett. I think he fits this Washington system. I think Rivera will be able to develop him. And I think Kenny Pickett, out of all the quarterbacks, seems to be the most ready for the NFL. But even then, it's very hard. I think Corral's very ready as well. But I think he's up there with one of the most ready. I think that's what Washington needs, a solid quarterback. And I do think Kenny Pickett can excel in this league, and he'll go into a team with a really good defense, weapons on offense. I think he'll be able to succeed. And I think that's what Washington needs. They need a young quarterback who they can develop and be good for years to come, because the Giants are on the clock again. As much as I love Daniel Jones, I like Daniel Jones, but I think it's time for them to go get a new guy. I think Kenny Pickett fits.
Now I'm going to go on to my team. I have the Denver Broncos, and obviously they can't get Aaron Rodgers right now because he is staying with the Green Bay Packers. So obviously I wasn't going to have him anyway, but I think this is kind of an interesting situation, I feel like, for Denver, because there are some options. I mean, maybe Russell Wilson, he could be available. Again, maybe you get a quarterback like a Winston to kind of be like that placeholder kind of guy. But I am actually going to draft a quarterback, and someone you'd actually expect. And this isn't my preference, but I think who the Broncos would draft. I'm going to go Sam Howell, actually. I'm going to go Sam Howell because the reason why is I just think he's the type of quarterback the Broncos that John Elway would want.
Absolutely.
He's like a big guy, strong arm. Accuracy is,
he's got solid accuracy.
Sneakily mobile, actually. I'll give that.
He is okay. Yeah, he's not bad, but I think they might trade down. They might wait around, and I think he still would be available in the second round, early second at least. And it's a tough one because I think obviously I was torn between Pickett, Corral, Howell, those were the main guys I'd say. But I think what sets Howell apart realistically is that I think, again, his arm strength and he's tough to take down. Like, he's a pretty big guy. And I think that's the type of guy that the Broncos like, and that's the guy they traditionally went for. And they'll like that he can at least step in and be competent on the NFL field from day one. So I'm gonna go Sam Howell. It's a bit of a risky one though.
I don't think you guys actually know this because I haven't really brought it to your attention, but I really do like Sam Howell. He's probably my quarterback. You guys do, but quarterback 2 for me in my class. He was quarterback 1 up until pretty recently, but he's someone that I think will be ready for the NFL the day he steps on the field. And I think he does have the upside that people don't recognize with his mobility, his big arm, and his coachability, because he's been able to go through different systems in North Carolina. Moving in to the Indianapolis Colts and likely losing Wentz. Wentz will not be their quarterback next season. And I'm going to be taking someone who has been banished to the Wolves since he took his team to 2 straight playoff appearances. Hasn't really been able to get anything after that, but every time he stepped on the field, he has played his heart out. And I'm going with Las Vegas Raiders backup Marcus Mariota.
I thought you were going Trubisky, who I would have put.
I did think about him.
I like Mariota. Sorry, just Dylan, before you explain it, I think Wentz would be a great option for the Broncos. But
I don't think that there would trade for him, though. I think if he was on the free agency market, if they cut him, then maybe.
Which I think they might. They might.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't think they would trade for him.
All right.
But going
I like
into
Mariota.
the Mariota selection, every time he stepped on the field for the Las Vegas Raiders when Carr got injured for the Thursday night matchup against the Chargers last season, Mariota played his heart out. It was really, really good. I don't think he's even lost a step. I think he's definitely going to get some sort of gig this season that we'll see him in a lot more. We'll see him a lot more. We saw him a little bit in some run packages last year where they would do a couple option plays with him. But I think we're going to see him a lot more, whether it be in Washington, which is kind of what I was fearing that was going to happen when I picked Mariota. I thought Washington was going to be the one that got him. But we're going to definitely be seeing him a little bit more this year. So I have the Colts going with him. I think it works well having Jonathan Taylor and a mobile quarterback that can still sling the ball down the field.
With that offensive line, I think that could be
with
very,
that offensive line. Yeah.
I think also, especially considering the fact that a lot of the Colts snaps, even to runs to Jonathan Taylor, do come out of shotgun. His option game could really actually work well, and like with a genius like Frank Reich, and with decent weapons, and obviously one of the best offensive lines in football. So I think this is actually I think it's a good fit. I think it could actually be an underrated move.
I actually do really like him in Washington as well.
Yeah. I also, one of the things I'm thinking though is the fact that really there's a good chance that maybe they bring in Mariota not even to necessarily automatically be their starting quarterback, but be competition for Carson Wentz, because realistically, who wants to trade for him at the moment?
They're past the point of giving Wentz competition. I think they're at the point where they're kind of dumping him out onto the street. No.
I get that. I know what you mean, but realistically, who wants to move for Carson Wentz right now? He's got a pretty decent contract.
There are teams that are interested in him.
Are you guys gonna move for him? Are one of you guys?
If I was the Broncos, you have a very, very similar team to the Colts, and you have a better offense. I think Wentz will do great in that. Wentz is not a very good quarterback. Wentz needs a good supporting cast. I think that's what the Broncos need. Judy, Sutton, Tim Patrick, obviously Javonte Williams.
Noah Fant.
Obviously a better tight end, a good defense, a defense that now will be obviously not as good as the Colts, but pretty similar. But again, I think that I'm not sure where the Broncos go. They're very confusing. I'm not sure if they'll draft or go against someone in free agency, someone trade. But I am now up with my New York Giants. I think it'll be Daniel Jones. This is probably the most boring one out of all of them. I think we know that Dable is, or at least they brought in Dable. If they didn't want to stick with Daniel Jones, I don't know if Dable would have been the clear number one choice. But we know what Dable did with Josh Allen, and I think that's what I think Dable will be great. Hopefully he can do something with something with Daniel Jones. I mean, I'll give you that. Daniel Jones has a lot of upside. Again, if he's can be coached right, I think he can be a good quarterback. I unfortunately, and I'm calling me a pessimist, I do not believe in Daniel Jones. I don't think he'll be a good quarterback. I think this year will be similar to past years, and I think they'll move on next year. But if there's a chance of him to have success, it's with one of the best coaches, or a coach who has produced Josh Allen. I'm definitely excited to see. I love Dan Jones. I think his mobility has a ton of upside. I think and again, Dylan Surge, don't get mad. People watching don't get mad. I think if you put him and Josh Allen side to side, just physically, and the things they can do outside the pocket, I think they're pretty comparable. Will he be able to?
Are you talking about pure
size and speed and again arm? I think Daniel Jones is
size. I wouldn't say size and arm talent, but I would agree with
speed. I agree. Yes,
speed and agility.
But not as. But I think Daniel Jones, if he's this is very skeptical and it's very can Daniel Jones' arm talent to be great? Yeah, we can say that about a lot of people, but do I think it'll happen? No. But what I'm saying is that if you give Daniel Jones a good coach, and I think he has arm talent that's good. I don't think he's necessarily a poor or a weak arm quarterback. I think it's just decision making is terrible, which can be coached. So hoping Dable can do that. That's kind of where I'm at with Daniel Jones, and then we'll maybe a Bryce Young or CJ Stroud next year. So that's where I'm at. Yeah, Daniel Jones, a little bit boring there, but Surge, you're on the clock again. No one has stolen anybody's quarterback yet.
Yeah, so far
I
no
one.
I
hope it happens. Bro.
And I doubt it's gonna happen with this one. I have the Raiders, and this is another I feel like boring one. I'm gonna go with Derek Carr. I think the only way we could really see him leaving is the fact that he isn't an unrestricted free agent next season, and maybe if the Raiders don't think that they can seriously compete with Derek Carr or just this team in general, maybe they'll think, let's get ahead of the curve and let's move on from him right now and get some good value. And they could get probably a couple first rounders for him. If Wentz is worth one first, I think they could easily get 2 firsts for Carr. But I think with the Raiders, they have a decent bit of cap space. We've heard about how they want to move in for guys like Devontae Adams, who could probably make this offense one of the best in football. And they definitely believe in Derek Carr. He played like a top 10 quarterback this season. So I think they will. I think I would be stunned really if they do move on from Derek Carr at this point, considering there's basically no noise recently about him actually moving. So I'm gonna go with Derek Carr.
All right. I don't think any of us have any arguments for that. And we're moving.
Only thing, and this is very, very out of the ordinary, I think he would be great on the Browns.
He would.
I don't think they'll trade for him, but who knows? It's the NFL. Maybe something crazy will happen, but I think they'll stick with him. And I think they very much think they can be successful with Derek Carr. I don't think it's Derek Carr's problem, the success for this Raiders team. I think it's everything around him. But GM Dylan, you're back.
I'm back on the clock, and I've actually taken the liberty to swap out the Vikings, which was originally on the list, to the Titans. Mm-hmm. Both pretty boring situations, both pretty simple answers, but I think the Titans has a little bit more merit of a situation because we really only thought about the Titans because of the recent rumors coming out with Darnold and Cousins swapping. Mm-hmm. The Titans we've been seeing for a while. They might want to move on from Tannehill. If I'm taking Tannehill from any of you, I don't really apologize. I'm going with him to lead the Tennessee Titans next season in an incredibly, incredibly weak AFC South, and it should give people the reassurance they need for him to be that guy. So I think Tannehill, as much as I kind of scoff at his credibility of eliteness, which is what we saw a lot of in the offseason last year, how Ryan Tannehill's the elite piece that the Titans needed to push over the line. Derrick Henry's only so much. Ryan Tannehill's really as important for this offense as Derrick Henry. No, it's not that.
Said that.
No, I saw that. I did see that.
You saw that?
I did see that. I saw Ryan Tannehill, AJ Brown.
Serge, Dylan sees things that nobody else sees. Just what you have to learn about him.
Yeah, I see everything. I have eyes on the back of my head. But either way, Ryan Tannehill, he's not elite, but he's good enough to keep this Titans team contending. I don't see them moving on from that unless Aaron Rodgers finds his way into their lap. Don't see that happening. Ryan Tannehill's their guy.
All right. Now we have the Panthers, and I think that their quarterback will be Bailey Zapp out of Western Kentucky.
Week 1?
I'm joking.
Oh, okay.
I think their quarterback will be Liberty quarterback Malik Willis.
Oh, there's the first steal. There's the first steal.
There's the first steal. I really like Malik Willis. He's my quarterback 1. I think this guy holds a very, very high amount of upside. That didn't really make sense. Here's the problem with the Panthers. They don't have the greatest coaching. So I think this is definitely the situation in which Malik Willis could be a bust. I picked it. I'm not a huge fan of it. He doesn't really get to sit behind an experienced quarterback because Bridgewater is a free agent. Darnold is awful. So it's not like he's going to be learning anything from him. And then coaching wise, it's definitely not terrible, but it's not great. So I think, again, Malik Willis is that kind of guy. You guys know what I'm saying. I think if he can be polished, he will be a better Lamar Jackson. He has a better ability to throw the ball. He can rush just as well. And he's just elusive. Like you look at Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, they look to make men miss downfield. And he's been able to do that. If you look at his tape, some of the throws this guy's been able to make are the best throws I've ever seen. Some of them are ridiculous. Rolling to the right, down the sideline, pinpoint, over 2 defenders. Like he can do it. Again, he's very erratic. He's a very erratic thrower a lot also. That being said, we did the Pro Bowl film analysis. He looked great. So I think this guy is going to start to rise draft boards. I think he will be a very good quarterback. Again, the coaching to me is pivotal, is crucial for this guy's career. I think it's crucial for a lot of the quarterbacks' careers. And the only thing I would be worried about is the Panthers coaching. Nevertheless, I think Malik Willis will be great. And I think he provides that kind of very, a lot of energy to that Panthers offense, which I think they could benefit off of with DJ Moore. And obviously if they get they have CMC back with CMC, I think it just makes this off. I mean, imagine having CMC and Malik Willis pans out. That's lethal. So I think it's
a lot of emphasis on the, if Malik Willis pans out player.
Yeah. Right. And unfortunately that's what it has to be though.
We haven't seen him play well against a good team yet. That's my, and we'll get into draft content when we get into draft content, but Malik Willis would not be my first choice for the Panthers there. If they
what would your first choice be?
I would take Kenny Pickett at 6.
Yeah. And
I think my problem is that I think I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Panthers take Malik Willis, but I don't think he's a week 1 starter necessarily because he's a very raw prospect. I could see them getting a veteran like, who knows, maybe a Carson Wentz or maybe a Jameis Winston to kind of just.
I don't even mind them sticking around with Darnold for another year if they can get an O-line.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess their offensive line is horrible, but still Darnold, I don't really. I think that's just giving up. But
Yeah.
that's just my opinion. I'm gonna go on now. Gonna go on to the next team, Houston Texans.
Ooh, you
And
got a big. This is gonna mold your reputation as
this
an
is what I would
analyst.
want to do, and this is what I think will happen. So I think they will stick with Davis Mills
I love you so
because
much.
they've got it. Because I think, honestly, even though he hasn't had the hype of the 5 rookies that were drafted in the first round, I think he was arguably the best out of all of them, given
I
the
know.
situations that they were in. Because obviously, Mac Jones, from a statistical standpoint, was better than Mills, but he was put in a much more advantageous situation than playing not on the Texans. So I think really the Texans got to notice that, hey, even though we have to move on from Deshaun Watson, we've still got a pretty good dude in Mills here. And we've got a guy that we can kind of at least attempt to rebuild around and put a somewhat of a competent roster around him, which he just didn't have rookie year and yet still showed many flashes. He's got a good arm, decent pocket presence, solid accuracy. And the real reason why he didn't really get drafted until the 3rd round was obviously his injuries. I think he tore his ACL twice during like high school or college.
Davis Mills, yeah.
I think so. That's why he fell. But I think really, I kind of like what he showed in Houston. I think if they do kind of get an offensive line for him, get a couple weapons, he could be a very, very solid starting quarterback next season.
Yeah, I don't have any complaints about that. Moving into the Steelers, and I kind of had to think about this one on the fly because I had Malik Willis taken away from me. So
you had Malik Willis to the Steelers.
I had Malik Willis to the Steelers, and my improved, I guess, answer, because I think this is going to end up working out better for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This answer is going to be Taylor Heinicke. And I think he would
Taylor Heinicke?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think
you got to explain this one.
Over Wentz and Winston.
You got to explain
Wentz and
this
Winston,
one.
because I think that the Steelers are not a team right now that are ready to sit down and wait for a quarterback to fall to them. So that's why I'm not going and taking a Cam Newton or a Brian Hoyer for them. But I'm convinced that Taylor Heinicke has the goods in him to get them to contend with the teams in his division. I've been very impressed every time I've watched the guy, other than the Dallas-Washington game, which we don't have to rehash that. That was simply atrocious. But he came in, he's a what's it called? He was in college, right? Well, he was in the NFL and in college the day he made the Tampa Bay Buccaneers start in the playoffs. He came into the game and he shocked the NFL world. And I don't think we really saw the same spark out of him in this NFL season, but I think it's still in him. And he goes into a new team, into Mike Tomlin's team for Pittsburgh, with a better offensive line, albeit not an incredible offensive line than Pittsburgh had, but better than Washington. Good weapons for him to throw to. No Terry McLaurin, but he does have Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, Pat Freiermuth, who was very good this season. And I think it's a guy that makes sense for Pittsburgh because he's kind of able to run around in a way that we saw Ben Roethlisberger kind of trying to emulate at the end of his career, but he kind of failed very spectacularly at it. So now they have Heinicke, who has that mobility. He has the kind of IQ to throw the ball quickly when he has to. I think he would work well in Pittsburgh's scheme.
Wow, nothing like Dylan Shalom shock. I mean, look, when we were talking about this earlier, when I was talking about Washington, I think Taylor Heinicke, he's one of those quarterbacks. This isn't going to make sense. I'm not going to explaining slightly complicated things, but the quarterbacks who have those games, like the random starters who we never heard of, who compete with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers randomly, like the Minshew's and the Heineckes. And I will give it to Heinicke. He has been one of the quarterbacks who has actually been decently consistent after that game. All the other guys you've seen fall off. So I'll give him that.
Minshew is also kind of okay.
Yeah, but right. Okay, fair enough. But Heinicke was, good. I don't see that happening though. I think Jameis Winston's a great option for them, for the Steelers. But I am now on the board with the Lions, another boring one. And I'm very, very strong in this. I think Jared Goff has proven he can be their guy. I do agree. Think and everyone's like, well, look at the record. He was on a awful team and it's Jared Goff. So he's one of the only quarterbacks who's young and immobile and plays like an old quarterback. So he's not the most ideal person, but I think he was great. I think, mounting those kind of wins, those shocking wins at the end of the season, as much as people love Dan Campbell, I don't think Dan Campbell's a good coach. I think he's crucial to this team though. And I know that doesn't make sense. And I don't think he's like a bad coach.
He fits the demeanor of the team where like
exactly.
I would like to
they're not talented, but they're very like tough and they'll run through a wall.
I think the
but
way
once
he
they get
speaks
good
to this
players
team impacts them.
Once they get players who are paid a lot, then he's gonna be like a lot less like they're not gonna be as like, oh yes, I'll break all my bones for you, coach.
Right, exactly. I think it's kind of the classic like high school football die.
Exactly.
I would quickly like to interrupt this and say that the Colts and Ian Rappaport just reported that the Colts are looking for an upgrade at the quarterback position. So that gives
we knew that though.
That gives the Wentz needs competition take out. They're getting someone new.
Is Mariota necessarily an upgrade over Wentz?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think Wentz, some of his decision making is just awful.
I know we're not on the.
Marcus Mariota's been thrown into the fire. I don't think he did anything wrong that necessarily got that job taken away from him. I think it was a 2-week injury. Tannehill played well. They kept it with him. And he kind of got thrown into the wolves. Fire, wolves, whatever. But I don't think he was treated fairly. I think he's ready to make a comeback into the league.
I know we're not talking about the Colts anymore, but my last team is the Seahawks, and I think it's pretty obvious who it's going to be there. But I'm going to just kind of quickly rehash on the Colts for a second, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think James Winston would be a great fit for the Colts because he was kind of in a similar situation with New Orleans where he had a great offensive line, great running back, and I think it's actually even better in Indianapolis, and kind of average receiving core. And he thrived in there because he was in a good system. He was kind of expected to check the wall down most of the time, but he was put in situations where at certain instances he could use his elite arm talent to kind of make those big plays and keep and make New Orleans a very good team. And we saw that even in the game before that he tore his ACL against Tampa Bay. And I think again with Indianapolis, a team that I think is very similar to New Orleans, except I think they're better. I think it would be a great fit for Jameis Winston.
Maybe it would be a good fit for Winston. And I can't believe we're going to be going back to 2015 with this as the number 1 and 2 overall picks.
Oh, wow.
But I think Mariota's better. So
the
Jameis Winston
Mariota
offers you the occasional 5 touchdowns, perfect throws, and then he also offers the losing you the game horribly by throwing 5.
But we didn't see that as much with the Saints.
We didn't see that as much, but we still saw the flashes of heredity that we saw out of Tampa Bay.
Not really. Not even.
We did.
That is a great word.
There were. I don't even know if it's a real word. I don't know. I went with it, but we saw it. And during the weekly predictions, I kind of said, okay, this is Winston's on game, off game, on game, off game. And I actually ended up being relatively close to correct a lot. So there were off games.
Yeah. But Serge, who is
I'll
your
go with the
quarterback
last
for
one.
the Seattle Seahawks?
I have the Seahawks. I kind of basically, you know who should be. It'll be Russell Wilson. He's talked about how
I thought it was going to be Blaine Gabbert. No, okay, go ahead.
I think with the Seahawks, they've talked about how they don't want to shop Wilson. They're not planning to. Wilson has come out saying, I hope it's not my last game in Seattle. So they seem to be on the same page. And even though the Seahawks don't have much draft capital, they do have a decent bit of cap space. So they can definitely kind of invest in the positions that need to be addressed, cough offensive line, and kind of get Seattle back to a position where maybe they're contending again. But I think Seattle, they're not actually as far off as people think.
I think they're very far off.
I don't think so.
I think the problem is Carroll. I'll just say it.
I don't think he's the problem. I don't think he's ready to take them out of this nest that they're in. The Jamal Adams trade put them underground.
I'm so really happy about it. But I still think they've got 2 very good receivers in Metcalf and Lockett. We really saw the emergence of Rashad Penny towards the end of the season. Remember, they still do have Chris Carson. So if they can re-sign Penny, I think this is a very good rushing.
I don't buy Penny's resurgence. I think that was a 5-game fluke. I don't buy it.
We don't know. Maybe it could be like David Montgomery, where he had that 5-game stretch and then next season became one of the better running backs in the league.
But Montgomery was still young. Penny's in his 4th season now.
That's pretty young. That's not
for a
running
back. It isn't for a running back.
Yeah, that's also
really. I mean, how old is he?
We saw one of the best running backs the league had seen in a long time. Todd Gurley get shipped out in his 4th season.
But that's because he had arthritis. Like that's different. But yeah, he's only 26, so he's still got a lot of football ahead of him. And I think if they can re-sign him, they've definitely got a pretty good rushing core, got a pretty good receiving core. And if you can rebuild that offensive line, Wilson actually has a lot to work with. So I don't think it would necessarily make sense, at least yet, to kind of pull the plug on Russell Wilson. And I think that's why Seattle and Wilson both recognize that, hey, why don't we at least give this one more year to see if we can still contend with the Arizonas, the San Franciscos, the Los Angeles, which
That's one
honestly,
we didn't touch on, Kyler Murray.
oh, we could have touched on. I doubt it.
Yeah.
I don't think anything comes out of that.
I think it's a lot of noise there.
Yeah.
It's just media, but I think Russell Wilson will stay with Seattle. I'd be highly surprised if he does move, and if so, where? I mean,
yeah. I don't
No,
think
actually, to be fair, Washington have shown heavy interest. I mean,
that's true, but I don't understand why you'd want to go from Seattle to Washington.
Yeah,
Like,
it's Russell Wilson.
It's not an upgrade.
You'll notice the good quarterbacks in the NFL, a lot of them are weird.
Yeah, I agree with that.
A lot of them are weird.
Russell Wilson has a lot more normalities to him than
than like Aaron Rodgers.
Wilson is
Rodgers, Brady, even Mahomes.
Mahomes or Brady aren't that weird.
Yeah, but like Mahomes' voice.
Yeah, true.
But that will round it out.
Though.
That will round it out. We hope you guys did enjoy. As always, Cian McDermott, Dylan Shalom, Serge Kadali, more videos to come. Tell you, ton of offseason content coming. We're doing some mock drafts, get our big boards updated, and a ton of draft content. So if you guys like that, and then obviously we'll be breaking offseason. When free agency comes around, hopefully we'll be going live and breaking news live about free agency. So make sure you join and follow us on social media if you guys want more content, more daily stuff, more kind of not serious stuff. And I hope you guys did enjoy. That was very fun. Let us know what you guys want us to do, some more game show-ish type stuff like that. But that wasn't very interesting. Only one quarterback was stolen. So hopefully it'll be more interesting next time. But we hope you guys did enjoy. We'll see you next time. And let's let the offseason begin.